You tell boys it's okay to cry, but when they do cry, you go, why are you crying? Be a man.
Men make up 96% of UK prisoners, 85% of rough sleepers, 99% of workplace deaths, and 96% of military fatalities.
There's proof now that women were also hunters. They weren't just gatherers.
Women are perfectly allowed to go in a lot of states in the US and kill some other man's baby without their permission. What are you talking about? It doesn't affect men.
No. That baby doesn't grow in a man's stomach, so it's not a man's baby.
Men are failing disastrously. I'm Izzy.
And I'm Garcia.
Welcome to Informally Informed. Okay, so I have some statistics.
Well, first of all, we're going to be talking about men, all right? We're going to be talking about men and what's happening with them in our society and how they're failing disastrously, but also the reasons behind that, because it's a big topic. So we're going to probably do a series on this, but for the time being, let's just talk about this particular thing.
Okay, so do you want to hear some of my statistics?
Sure, hit me.
Okay, so underachievement in school, and this is at pretty much every level. So 4 to 5 year olds, 60% have a good level of development competency compared to 75% of girls. Boys are on average half a grade lower in school subjects. They're twice as likely to be expelled, although let's be honest, that's probably not to be expected, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
In uni,
hormones and anger.
Yeah. In uni, 40% enrol compared to 54% of women. In work, they're vastly discriminated against when it comes to STEM subjects, so science, technology, engineering, maths. In 16 to 24-year-olds, women now earn 10% more on average compared to men. Men are more likely to be unemployed, more likely to be in lower paid, unsecured jobs. They live an average of 4 years less. They're twice as likely to die prematurely of heart disease, lung cancer, liver disease, and accidents. 3/4 of all men are suicides. They're twice as likely to suffer alcohol or drug-related illnesses. Men make up 96% of UK prisoners, 85% of rough sleepers, 99% of workplace deaths, and 96% of military fatalities, although to be honest, that's probably because there's more men in the military. And men get longer for the same crimes. I remember there was a case where a woman drove her car into a tree drunk. Her license had already been taken off her because she had, previous many instances of driving drunk. She got banned for driving drunk. She got in a car again, drunk, drove into a tree, and the judge said to her in the court, "If you were a man, I'd be sending you to prison right now." In school, 1 million UK children grow up without meaningful contact with their father. That's approximately 20% of all UK kids. 15% of primary teachers and 38% of secondary teachers are male, which is going to affect them in terms of male role models. Policy gaps. There's a women's health strategy. There's female-only homeless shelters. There's domestic abuse services, predominantly for women, despite the fact that men and women get abused just as much. There's more funding for breast cancer than there is for prostate cancer. There's the whole hashtag #MeToo false allegations thing, but there's no male equivalent for the hashtag #MeToo. Mm-hmm. In culture, and this is just the last little bit I put, male traits are devalued in society and female traits are overvalued, which leads to men having an identity crisis. Media portrays men and boys with negative stereotypes, and then there's the whole women and children off first thing with the Titanic in 2013, that plane that crashed into the Mississippi. That was still women and children first. So men's physical lives are valued less than women and children. That's it. Those are my stats. I know that's a lot
of stats.
A lot of stats.
The perception that men are failing in today's society, it's reflective of our complex social situation. We've got a complex socio-economic situation, and we've seen a significant cultural shifts. Okay, yeah. So in terms of the cultural shifts, it's significantly altered how we view the male role, the role of men, because you don't even need men to have babies now. Mm-hmm. It's not universal though, because a lot of men are thriving. Um,
Can we say as well this is specifically related to the United Kingdom?
yeah. So in terms of like the decline, because you mentioned before about the STEM subjects.
Yeah.
So the decline in traditional male-dominated jobs and fields like industrial and manufacturing jobs, which historically were obviously stable environments for men to grow, working class men specifically, they've diminished due to automation and globalization. All right. So it's not all like in terms of the UK. I mean, it's only recently that the steel factory in Wales got shut down. The one in is it Scunthorpe?
Yeah, that was an absolute joke in itself. Not to segue too much, but they closed the steel factory in Scunthorpe because they wanted to be seen as being more green. So instead, what happens, we ship in all our steel from outside the country, which actually increases global emissions, not decreases it. Just so the UK can say, oh, well, our country's greener.
Yeah, so they're running this net zero situation, which is ruining a lot of what were traditional working class male jobs. We live in a town in the UK, in the north of the UK, that used to be a mining town. They used to mine for coal. All right. Those were male only jobs. They closed the mines, and then the town became very depressed, and a lot of the men couldn't get other jobs because the only thing they knew were the pits. All right. They don't have the skills to go and work at Tesco, for example, because even there you need interpersonal skills, you need emotional intelligence, you need things like education, which is more female dominated. These are female traits, tend to be, and as such, the high growth sectors which we have now in the UK, which is the service sector, is being dominated by women because they've got the interpersonal skills to be able to do that.
Yeah, because women are better with languages and speech and all that.
Yeah, but because of this shift towards the service jobs, service industry, the UK is as the UK economy now is underpinned by finance and services. That's now been brought into, so a lot more women are able to do those jobs, and the impact is that some men feel economically displaced.
Yeah,
they're struggling to find a purpose in society where their provider role is less clear, because it's not like in the 1950s when the men would bring home the bacon. Now everybody brings home the bacon. In terms of real world impact, what we see then is a rise in crime, violent crimes. We've seen a rise in violent crimes over the last 50 years because men are becoming more and more unemployed, but they still have to feed their families. They got to find a way to do that. Women, our roles are dual in the sense that we're still expected to look after the home even though we're at work. Men have lesser of that burden, which means that they feel less part of the family. They always have. It's always been a case. Even though we have paternal leave and all the rest of it, parental leave now it's called, isn't it? It's not maternal. It's just parental leave now. It's still not very as long as the mother would have, for example, to bond with that child, but we still expect them to raise that child. So society, even though it's shifted, the responsibilities are still the same, but the situations in which you would get the money to do the things that to take care of your own responsibilities are no longer there. So what do then? A lot of men are in prison. There are more men in prison.
Yes, 96% of all prisoners in the UK are male. But a lot of that has to do with, biological differences as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's always been the case. It's
of
always
course.
been. I mean, back in the, well, it depends on how far you want to go back. The coverture laws. Women couldn't go to prison. So if a woman committed a crime, a man would have to go to prison on her behalf, which is enough to try and keep your woman in line, I suppose. So he would have to basically take the blame if she committed a crime and go to prison. So there's always been an overrepresentation of men in prison. But again, like if you take an average man on the street and an average woman on the street and say, I think that man is going to be more aggressive than that woman, you're only going to be right about 60% of the time. Like, it's not a massive difference. The reason why they're so overrepresented in prisons is because it's at the extremes.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same with IQ, right? Women tend to operate more around the mean. Men go from one end of the spectrum to the other more often. It's why I've got more male geniuses. It's also one of the many reasons why there's more men in our prison systems. So it's multi-varied, and a lot of it has to do with discrimination against men when it comes to sentencing and stuff like that.
Like I said, this is the beginning of a series because we'll have to
Poor
look
little
into
woman,
that.
poor little woman can't go to prison, all that kind of thing.
Yeah. But in terms of like social and cultural shifts, because I mentioned that before, and the evolving gender roles, traditional expectations of masculinity is like protector, provider, and leader.
That's interesting. I put provide, protect, and procreate.
Oh, interesting. But that's no longer the only male markers of male identity, because new definitions are often unclear. But on the same note, right? Because recently, and I say in recent times, because I'm sure it was at some point this year, the High Courts defined what a female was. It never had to define what a male was. Interestingly enough.
Yeah. But I suppose it's just the opposite.
Yeah, but also the rise in female empowerment. And I'm not just talking about the feminists here. I'm talking about women entering leadership roles and achieving financial independence, which challenges old hierarchies of the patriarchy, which can leave some men unsure about their place in life, especially women. Single women are because now more and more there's more single parent homes. Single women are raising young boys with their own empowerment, under the guise of their female empowerment. So
which is not what they need. They need male role models.
Yeah, I do agree that I think everybody needs male role models, but I think men especially.
Yeah.
And as an impact, it's creating identity crises, and confusion over what it means to be a man in modern society.
Well, this is the thing, right? So up until very recently, and by recently I mean like 100 years, 150 at a push, right? Society was very, like, biology determines your role. The only jobs that were available before the Industrial Revolution were physical, manual labour jobs. And those kind of jobs are still being done by men today, like transport and logistics, oil rigs, deep sea fishing. If men ceased to exist, 96% of the world's population would starve to death because of the amount of the people that you don't see that are helping to bring all those things together. Women somebody had to stay at home, not just with the kids, because obviously there was no babysitters, but somebody had to walk 3 miles every day to hand wash those clothes. Somebody had to go to the market every day because fridges didn't exist, and if you didn't eat the food on the day, they would go off. Like the lack of it's technological advancements that is what have shaped this change in culture and in society, because men had to do the physical jobs because it made sense. Women had to do it because it made sense. It just made sense in the way the society was. So I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions of years people have been in existence, but how do you compare the recent 150 years to the last millions of years of the way that it was? I mean,
but we don't know that.
How do you change that? Do you know what I mean?
So there's a couple of things with this, because
how do you deal with that, I should say? How do you adapt in modern society?
Recently watching a documentary on the History Channel, which barely shows any freaking documentaries, by the way. It's shit now.
It's the History Channel.
There is a history, the History Channel.
What do you mean they don't show any documentaries?
They don't really. It's shit. They just show loads of what do you call it? Like where they go and buy like crates and
antique shows.
Yeah, like stuff like it's not the History Channel of old. Anyway.
Oh, okay.
So I was watching this, and they were talking about how the way that we look at our modern society, modern society looks at history is wrong. There's proof now that women were also hunters. They weren't just gatherers. In that society, everybody had to be equal because things needed to be done. And they also had generational homes, which
sure
we don't have as much now. But in terms of like what you were talking about, digital, the age of technology, men are more likely to use digital escapism than women are. And by that, I mean like video games, online communities, and porn.
Just to go back quickly, but just because there's a couple of examples,
it's not a couple of examples. They're now rewriting a lot of history because of what they found. Or like Göbekli Tepe. Go and have a look. They're now rewriting a lot of what they thought was history, our history, because it's not. And also ancient Greece. They're rewriting a lot of that stuff because they found out new information, as they should when they find out information. Your opinion should change based on that. But anyway, video games, online communities, and pornography can replace real world socialization and relationship building.
Yes.
And that is affecting men more than it's affecting women. So in terms of negative comparisons, social media amplifies feelings of inadequacy and competition in men.
Yes. It's not surprising.
It's not surprising because teenage boys, I've got a whole thing on the adolescent male, but teenage boys are susceptible. All teenagers are susceptible, but teenage boys are susceptible to what is deemed the manosphere. They are more likely to compare themselves to men that they see online. So
what do you mean when you say the manosphere?
Skinny little boy sees these big old men getting women and pumping iron,
and they want to be like that.
They want to be like that. To be fair, on the flip side of that, well, we're not talking about women, but also the female version of that, which is women seeing skinny women and wanting to be like that, so they starve themselves. But that's a different topic.
Yeah, it's both genders have a. Yeah, I mean, people are people.
Yeah, people are people. But in terms of the impact on men, it reduces motivation for them to engage in career building, relationships, and community responsibilities.
You know what else does that? Porn. I know you mentioned that.
I did mention that. Porn also does that. Yeah, it does. But in terms of like engaging in career building, what we're seeing now is a lot of men that would rather stay at home playing games than going out and building their career. I used to think this about my brother, but I don't now. Hi, Dean.
I think that a lot of this has to do with the dopamine response and the addiction that comes with it. It's like, and people, I mean, everyone knows not to touch heroin. Everyone knows not to gamble too much, right? But for some reason, when it comes to video games, I don't think people are aware of just how addictive they can be. They're designed like that. Mm-hmm. So once you get into that habit, if you leave the house, all you can think about when you're gone is, oh my God, what if I lose my place? What if I just want to be back in and I want to be playing this? It's an addiction. It's a constant thing. And parents are giving them to their kids. Here you are, sit there, spend as long as you like. But if a parent got out a bottle of vodka and said to a 14-year-old, here you go, son, there'll be trouble.
Yeah, and with that, I mean, we're looking at the shrinking male peer networks. They find that online.
The what? Shrinking
male peer networks. So instead of like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate to see them palling around on their little fucking black, dressed all in black in their little BMXs. I hate to see it, but I'd rather see that because at least they're men bonding. Men don't know how to bond anymore, so they do that online. They'll talk to each other. So I think part of it is addiction to gaming, but I also think that part of it is finding your communities online. These men are talking to each other through gaming. So they're sat online and they're on Twitch. They're talking to each other. So they're getting that what's the word? That opportunity to network, to become friends, to do that, to communicate, but it's online.
But also, I think some of it has to do with the fact that in modern society, you hear constantly, men are scared to talk about their feelings. They just need to talk about their feelings. If only they could we live in a culture today where it's frowned upon for men to talk about their feelings. No, men just don't want to do that. So you're putting a female characteristic onto the men, sit down with them and go, why don't you open up to me, honey? Why don't you tell me? And they're like, what?
But not even
that's not
that.
how men bond. Send men to do some freaking barn raising on a weekend or something. Build some shit, have a laugh, give each other wedgies, and they'll make besties for life.
So that's also in my list, which is physical play, in-person socialization, because it was once a central situation to male bonding. Like you just said, they used to just go and wrestle. Do you know, back in the day, if you had a disagreement with someone, do you remember, let's go sort this out as men? What did that mean? Go outside, fight it out, and then be done. Now they're bitching like women. Anyway,
Yeah.
So in terms, you just mentioned mental health. So, well, sort of. So let me mention mental health and emotional expression. So there is a mental health crisis amongst men and boys in this country.
Yeah.
Okay.
3/4 of all suicides.
Indeed. Boys have high rising rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide attempts. I'm talking about teenage boys, particularly in late adolescence. Yep. Social stigma still discourages boys from seeking therapy or discussing their emotions openly. With it, and I've seen this for myself. It pisses me off to no end. You tell boys it's okay to cry, but when they do cry, you go, "Why are you crying? Be a man." You tell boys that they should talk to you about their problems, but as soon as they do, as a woman, you throw that back in their face, or you call them weak.
I don't.
You specifically, or they make them feel as though what they're saying is wrong. It's not okay. They have to be strong all the time. This is not helping our men. It's actually creating emotional suppression, wherein that can lead to the anger that we're talking about. That can lead to withdrawal instead of seeking help. Because the thing is this, from working in mental health, this is what I've gathered. When men, really are trying to kill themselves,
They just get on with it.
they don't tell you they're trying to kill themselves. They don't seek help. They just fucking do it.
Yeah.
And we should be worried about that. As a society, we should be very concerned about this. We're losing a portion of our men to suicides. High proportion of men.
Have you seen a documentary called The Red Pill?
No, but you've told me about this. Do you remember you told me to watch it? Was it last week you told me to watch it?
It's very, very good.
I'll add it to my list of millions of things that I will never watch.
I'm telling you.
Just remind me and I will. If you remind me and hound me to watch it. You know how this
right
goes.
here. This is what this is called.
Yeah.
When I ask you if you've done something and you say no, that is a reminder.
No, I know, but look,
anyway.
It's statism. It's killing my brain.
Anyway. It's a very good documentary. And have you heard of the MRA, the men's rights activists in America?
Yeah.
They get a bad rap.
They do.
Everyone accuses them of being a misogynist, this, that, or the other. And this feminist goes in, spends a couple of months with them, chats to them, and realises that they're just men talking about subjects like suicide. And they go through all the stats in the programme and stuff. But the problem with today's culture is that if anybody dares put their head up, just look at the whole Jess Phillips thing. When she said to one of the male MPs in this country something, "You'll get your equal funding for prostate cancer when we get 50% representation in Parliament," or something like that, which is ridiculous unfair because you can't control who people vote for. It's almost laughed at because this false idea that we're somehow living in a patriarchal society means that every time somebody pops up and goes, "Well, how about we talk about men's issues?" For once, they get accused of being misogynistic.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at I have brothers, I have nephews, I have a dad. And I look at all these men in my life and I sort of think, I want them to be more open and honest about their feelings.
But what if they don't want to? There's a biological difference there.
No, I'm aware. I'm aware, but I want them to have the option without it being thrown back in their faces.
Yeah.
I want therapy to be something that they can do because therapy is something that everybody's pushing now. Everybody I speak to, "Oh, you should get some therapy." I've had loads of therapy. I've told you about this. I keep telling you should get some therapy, but we don't say that enough to men. We don't say that enough to men so they can have the safe So fucking hell. Whatever. They can have the safe space to talk about their feelings. They need to get it out because otherwise it comes out in anger. Or do the things that traditionally men did to sort out that anger. Put them in kickboxing because that will also create male bonding.
I think that's a great idea.
Go and
send them to violent sports.
Yeah, but stop letting them just do so online. Because look at the rise of. Do you remember that back in the year 2002? Bowling for Columbine.
Mm-hmm. I've watched that.
I've watched it too. I could see, the unpopular opinion, I'm aware, I could see how he got there.
There's a TED talk by the mother of one of those shooters, not the main guy, the other guy, because there was two, wasn't there? Mm-hmm. And she does a TED talk, and the first line is like, in whatever year it was, my son and his friend walked into a school and shut it up. It's very interesting to listen to her talk about it.
But then even look at how we treat men that are like this. Men that we don't find desirable, we call incels.
Yeah.
Men who lack the social communication to be able to go and speak to women, we call them incels. But here's the thing: it's just like with the dating apps thing. I think it's only like 10% of clickbaity men that get all the likes, and then the 90% get left. We look at men in society as disposable, but we don't look at women in the same way.
Yep. Although men are less prone to fear. Back to the aggression thing, and this is across all areas. So from jump starts in scary movies to the battlefields, men are just less likely to. I mean, they still get scared. There's several instances where men have been held at gunpoint to go and fight and whatnot. But this is why a lot of men are drawn to the police. They're drawn to the military. They're more willing to get into physical fights because they don't have the same level of fear of getting punched in the face that a lot of women do.
Yeah, but then also let's look at just a general thing here, because I said this to someone at work when I was talking about this topic. Just as a general thing, because I hate to see it, right? Women will look at men and say to them, "You ain't shit." However, when they're walking down the street and someone's attacking them, they will expect that man to then jump in and defend them. But you've just turned to that man and told him that he ain't shit. You expect men to have that level of barrier, which you yourself don't have. Yeah. So if a man turned around to you and said, "You ain't shit," that would be a big, massive issue. But it's okay for you to turn around. It's abusive. It's abusive. We don't treat men with any kind of respect in this society. Respect is earned, don't get me wrong. But we don't treat them with respect. We treat them as though they're below us. And this is... I would love to get a feminist on. If you're a feminist, reach out. Because I'd love to talk to you about how far feminism has gone beyond the scope.
Because there's still so many people that talk about, we live in a patriarchy or whatever. But I wrote this down. Definition of patriarchy suggests that the differences between the sexes and their social roles are not the result of biology. Instead, they are socially constructed, which has resulted in the pervasiveness of male domination in women's lives. That's incorrect.
I don't disagree with that, though. I don't disagree with it, but I do. I don't fully disagree with it, I should say, because in terms of our institutions, they are patriarchal. They are. In terms of
because more men happen to be working there, but that's not the result of.
Not because of more men happen to be working there. I'm talking about more governmental than I am anything else. Because, but then also part of.
So you mean the MPs?
Wait, hold on. I was gonna say I agree and both disagree with that, because we have had a female prime minister. We've had
we've had two. Three. We've had three.
Three?
Yes.
We had Theresa May, Maggie. Oh.
Liz Truss.
I forget about her because she was prime minister for 6 weeks.
But again, this isn't the result of some sort of sexism. It's because I go to political events. I'm far more likely to see men in the room than women. It's because of different interests and all that kind of thing.
When I say like governmental and institutional, we're talking specifically about the UK, which I was going to say because we've had British prime ministers. But in terms of America, we're in Roe v. Wade that kind of stuff, policing women's bodies. I don't agree with that.
That's not a sexism argument.
Sorry?
That's not nothing to do with patriarchy.
But it's men that's legislating against that. So yeah, there's no legislation that governs men's bodies.
There's loads of women that were
There's no legislation that legislates men's bodies. There isn't any.
I'm going to firmly disagree with you.
Oh, go on. Tell me one.
Pardon?
Tell me one.
No, I'm going to disagree with you to say that it's completely. This stops men doing what they. Yeah, the law says that men aren't allowed to pick up bottles and smash people over the head with it.
It says
using
anybody
their arms.
isn't. It doesn't specify women.
It's
but
not.
But the abortion law does. That specifies women. There isn't any law like that for men.
And the majority of people that are in favour of limits on abortion are majority women.
Where's the statistics to prove that?
You can go and have a look. I've done my research on
because
this.
I don't believe that.
This idea, what the feminists have done, and it's very clever, not to get off topic, but also I'm going to push back very hard about it.
Go on.
They've managed to convince people that the argument, the abortion argument, is somehow a women's rights argument. It's not.
But
it's
it becomes
about other life.
Okay. It becomes a women's rights argument when it starts to when it's only affecting women. This abortion law,
it doesn't only affect
men. Don't have abortions, do they?
Women are perfectly allowed to go in a lot of states in the US and kill some other man's baby without their permission. What are you talking about? It doesn't affect men.
No. That baby doesn't grow in a man's stomach, so it's not a man's baby, and it's only a baby after. Okay, we're getting into the abortion argument. Let's focus back.
I am just pushing back on the fact that you cannot say that America lives in a patriarchy because they've got abortion limits. We have abortion limits.
I'm not saying that. That's not what I said. I said in terms of legislation, there isn't any legislation that governs men's bodies, but there is that governs women's bodies. There always has been
at the federal level.
Yes, at the federal level.
Which
abortion is the Roe v. Wade thing was a federal law.
No.
That wasn't. Yes, it was.
What Roe v. Wade did was defederalize it and left it up to the hands of the states.
However,
that is not a federal law.
But
they're putting it back in the hands of the states.
It went to the Supreme Court. It went straight from state laws into the Supreme Court.
What do you mean?
So it ceased to become a state situation once they repealed it.
No,
it went back to being a state situation when they repealed it.
So it wasn't a federal law. What they did was they took it out of the hands of the federal government and put it back into the hands of the states.
It needs to go back into the hands of the federal government.
But you just said that it was a federal law.
Okay, I misspoke.
To allow the states to make up their own decisions.
Okay. All right. Shall we come back to this when we have the abortion argument? Yeah. So back to this men's mental health situation before I bring this to a wrap, because I really want to mention this. So in the UK, up to 8 million men experience feelings of loneliness at least once a week, and nearly 3 million feel lonely every single day. There's a loneliness epidemic in the UK. However, the Office of National Statistics data from 2020 to 22 found that 6.3% of men reported chronic loneliness compared to 7.7% of women. So we talk about the loneliness epidemic in the UK in terms of what it's doing to men, but we're not looking at it in terms of what it's doing to women. But the difference is women are more likely to have friendship groups than men. And in the elderly, in old age, men are more likely to not have any friends or any social support than women. Women are more likely to have social support because they're more likely to keep in contact with their children, whilst men are not. And in terms of like the loneliness, it's closely tied to higher rates of depression, substance misuse, and suicidal behavior, like you said before. Men are 3 times more likely than women to die by suicide, like you said. And you said that. Men suffer in silence. They're unwilling or unable to talk about loneliness for fear of appearing weak. Social anxiety is rising, especially in the post-pandemic. Men are more likely to retreat into digital life, which compounds isolation rather than alleviating it. I see it on a daily basis that men will turn up to A&E just because they're just feeling lonely. They're feeling low.
Yeah, and I think the lack of social sort of cohesion brought on by the feminist movement is what's leading to increased level of loneliness. So I have some statistics on married women. Married women have higher physical and mental health rates. They live longer. They have reduced rates of injury, illness, lower likelihood of committing suicide, lower rates of depression, lower rates of domestic violence, and reduced likelihood of being victims of crime. So there's massive benefits to married women are happier, essentially.
But funny that, because when I looked at this for a different project, and I found that married women are more likely to suffer physical violence. They're more likely to their biggest risks to married women are in fact their husbands.
That's not what I found.
Interesting, but we'll come back to that. Anyway, when we do our domestic violence one, which I'm sure we will at some point, because I mean, I have a whole thing about sports and domestic violence.
So what I think as well is that, like, this, if you look at what should, I guess, be men's role, the three main things are provide, protect, and procreate.
I didn't get that, but yeah, go on. Similar.
That's been like the main thing throughout history, and the protect one is the one that's least shared. So the protect one is pretty much throughout the animal kingdom. If you look at Pride of Lions, the women do most of the providing, but it's still the man's job to do the protecting. Lions, lionesses, mans, women, same thing. And I think men are suffering basically a massive identity crisis right now. Because, and especially when you've got this idea of the patriarchy and men are oppressing women and all this kind of stuff, which just really isn't true. Men are not oppressing women in today's society. And you look at, the average school kid is looking around at all the girls in the class, seeing that she's got better grades, or you go to work and you see that all these women are, and you sat there going, what patriarchy are you talking about? Or the people that get falsely accused, the hashtag believe all women stuff. And they're sat there going, what planet are you living on? So that's just making them more and more depressed. And as a society, like with the whole Jess Phillips thing, instead of talking about the issues, we're demonizing people and we're just basically just laughing at them.
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with some of your points. I do think that in today's society we are demonizing men quite a bit. I do think that we are centering women in a way that's detrimental to men. And I do think that feminism has gone too far, and we've started leaving behind men.
Massively.
That is a problem.
Yeah. Anyway,
that's it.
We'll call it. Well, let us know what you think. Do you agree with us?
Join in, men. You tell me what's going on with you.
What's going on with you, men?
What's going on with you?
And we'll see you in the next one.
See you in the next one. Let us know if you agree or disagree with any of our views. That's the point of the conversation. Join in.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.